G'day y'all, it's The Edward Show. I'm your host, Edward Fox, and together we're going to dive into the lives and stories of extraordinary individuals I meet from every corner of our globe. G'day y'all, it's The Edward Show, and it's another episode, and this one, man, I got some questions for this guy. My special guest today is Andreas Klaric, and I butchered his name because I don't pronounce it at all well, so I appreciate some grace on that. Welcome to the show.
No, thanks for having me here. Delighted to be a guest and looking forward to having a fun conversation with you.
Well, there you go. That is something I can't guarantee it, but most of my guests say it is a fun conversation. So now, we did find out some interesting stuff before we actually hit the record button. So, born and raised Chattanooga?
Not raised, but born in Chattanooga. Yeah.
Okay, well, born in Chattanooga. How old were you when you went to Bolivia?
I think it was six to 5 months. I was not technically a baby. I was a baby.
There you go. Okay, so 5 months old, 6 months old, went to Bolivia, lived there till you were what?
18.
18, and then now you are mid-30s and you're in New York City?
New York City.
Okay.
New York City, correct. Yeah.
I love New York City. You know, I watched Crocodile Dundee back in the 80s before I'd ever come over here, you know, and he's walking down the street saying hi to everybody. And so when I went to New York, I did that too. It works. People will talk to you. So I wasn't wearing an American flag shirt then. I was just wearing, you know, normal stuff. But people will talk to you if you're friendly. I don't know if you find that, but I find that.
I know I love New York. It's an intense city, but I think people are very transparent to who they are, right? So they could be very friendly, or they could be very efficient about telling you to get lost.
Yes, yes. Yeah, they have some of that New York attitude. I've got some friends that live upstate. We Newburgh and around that area, up towards Poughkeepsie and that sort of stuff. And so they're, you know, I'm like, oh, let's go to New York City, and they're like, do we have to? I'm like, oh, come on, it's the town that never sleeps. I love New York City. So you can walk out of your apartment or your hotel. Everything is there. The bodegas have just about everything you want. There's a movie theater down the road. There's 100 restaurants to choose from. You can get anywhere you want.
No, it's a magical city. I think I left to California for a couple of years, and the city drew me back. I guess it was love at first sight, and I haven't been able to completely separate myself from the city. But I officially moved to Brooklyn in August, so it's still just Brooklyn Heights. It's not that far away from the city. I can see the city, but right. It's been a healthy process of little by little separating myself from the craziness of Manhattan.
Right. So I grew up watching those movies in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and always liked the New York movies like The Warriors, where the gangs are all fighting. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, or what was the one with Kurt Russell where it's a dystopian Escape from New York City, right? Like it's after a world war, or it's after, you know, the end of the world or whatever, and then they use the New York City or Manhattan Island as a prison or whatever. And so those were the things. When I first get to New York, you know, I do what most new visitors do, and like, you know, like you're a country bumpkin. Golly, like, oh, look at them tall buildings, you know. Get the picture with the police officer, stand in Times Square, all that sort of stuff. But I think it's sometimes interesting looking at a part of the world from somebody else's viewpoint. Like me, I grew up in Sydney. I'm like, yeah, it's just Sydney. Like, it's a good city, but, and then you get people go, oh, Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And I'm like, yeah, I like Australia, but I like living in America.
I love your country though. Sydney is actually pretty fun. So I could speak hours about Sydney. So
right. Well, we are going there. I'm going there. Let me think. December 5th to January 8th. December 5th, 2023. So depending, folks, on when you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, it could be maybe 10 years ago that I went to Sydney. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday that was done in 2014. So, you know, you have to be careful when you do these podcasts. You can't give specific dated information. You want to sort of keep it open. But let's get on to why you're on the call. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you're working on. I see a background there that says use. What is that all about?
Yeah, so we're a technology company. We partner with banks, credit unions, finance companies, and we help them become digitally native. So we do so. Or our first product is a loan origination system. In essence, it's like the orchestration layer uh, that on top of which a bunch of applications are operating. So let's say you're applying for a car loan or credit card. You need to put your personal information, you need to put your income information, you need to put, like, let's say if you're buying a car, the type of vehicle that you're buying, and then that gets sent to the lender. The lender needs to decision that information. So when they receive that information, there's like a certain type of rules that they follow. All those rules live within our system, and based on that, they say yes or no, right? If they say no, usually there's a letter that needs to get sent to you, based on like the regulatory, the type of credit card, the type of loan that you're getting. And if
Right.
you're told yes, you need to be walked through a next set of documents and like ultimately fund that loan and pay the parties involved, right? So that's what our software does, right? And it does it in a way that is automatic, because for a lot of our partners are started with like pen and paper or highly manual processes in which you need to type your name 50 times. I mean, exaggerating 50 times, but just like we're trying to minimize keystrokes. We're trying to make it very easy to the back office of of lenders to process this information at scale. And ultimately, when you automate processes and when you automate it in a correct fashion and order, you ultimately reduce the cost of that lender. And if the cost of that lender uh, drop, you allow them to approve that marginal borrower. That marginal borrower is that person that today gets turned down because that lender just doesn't have the same profitability. And if they can approve more people, it's the beauty about this country, right? The flywheel of credit enables more folks to like go to college, get that car they need to go to work, refinance those personal loans that are expensive with cheaper debt, and or that business owner to like buy that inventory they so badly need to kind of get into the holiday season. So those are the things that we facilitate. For me, coming being the son of immigrants, I've always seen lenders, banks as actually very positive sources, agents in the economy. I can remember being a little kid and going to the bank to pick up the money that like mom and dad were sending home, and I they were not home, but like at least I through their money I was feeling the love that they were the sacrifices that they were doing for us, right? So that what I'm trying to do is just that next step of like turning this multi-generation organizations like lenders to be more efficient and really enabling them to like access the 21st century in the way they should.
And are you finding, so I'm not familiar with the banking industry on that aspect. I own a barter exchange, and so it's called Trade Bank. It's a franchise model, but we're not lending barter dollars, right? So it's whole alternative currency. So is there a huge need for what you're providing? Are they still stuck in this system of taking all of these signatures, and is it all these disjointed systems that they're trying to make work, and that's what you sort of are taking away and simplifying it for both
Yeah,
the back end people, the lenders, and also for the front end, the consumer?
yeah. I mean, just that the first piece of software that we're building is a $40 billion market. Uh, of course, I had never heard about it either, so I don't blame you. It's the type of it's business to business type of operations, right? Isn't it? You're never going. If I told you who
Yeah,
like the people operating our business, you never heard about it.
right,
It's
right.
uh, it- and uh, and when you even double click into the broader software for financial institutions, you get in the hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of like um, how big these companies are, right? So yeah, the problems are very prevalent, and it's not only to privy to bank. It's not only like banks and insurance companies that have these issues, like healthcare companies, all of them like are really operating in systems that one can label as legacy, right? And of course, they're highly regulated businesses, so it's not that you can just build something at home and like try to sell it. And there needs to be a lot of testing. There's a lot of certification that needs to happen. I mean, the defense industry has the same issue, right? Like by the time it's been certified, at least in the defense industry could be decades. Banking in healthcare is a little bit less than that, way less. It's like a month, but still, there's that barrier to entry of there's the running joke. I don't even know if this it's funny in the context of banks
Right.
that it's no bank all banks want to be your first third customer, right? Like no one wants to be your first customer. So like getting that traction and all of that, it in the early days is difficult, but I think we've been lucky to find multiple of those folks and really find our footing in the market.
Right. And it took me a minute there to catch it. So what Andreas said was that nobody wants to be your first client. They want to be your first third client. So
Yeah.
to prove that you've already got a couple of clients. And that, that is true across sales. I've done sales for 40 years and nobody wants to be the first person to buy it. They do want to be the third person. So I like that. I've never heard that before. So I'm going to write that down and take that. First, third customer. That's funny.
Yeah, I stole it from somewhere else, so I'm
Well, of
glad you
course.
find it useful too. Yeah.
Well, my dad would say things like, he would say that the first time you use something, you give people full credit, right? So as Edward always said, and then the second time that he stole it and says it, he says, as someone said, and then the third time he uses it, he says, as I've always said.
Yeah.
So you only have to give him credit the first time. So
Yeah.
That's cool. So who are you've come onto this podcast to share the idea and to talk it up and talk about it. What would be the ideal client that you would be interfacing with, or are you not in the sales side of it? You're more in a different side of it.
Yeah, no, clearly, that's a great question. No, I am like day to day, like kind of spreading the gospel of what Fuse does, right? So I'm in the trenches explaining to our customers what the value is that we provide to them. We our software can be utilized across the spectrum, but where we have found the most kind of like eagerness and what venture capitalists will call product market fit is in the non-mortgage consumer side of the house. We can do all sorts of lending, but I think that the best way to parse out the lending market is by virtue of really seeing what the end customer expectation is. And there's two swimming lanes in my view in which by which you can split the lending market. There's the fast and the slow processes, and we operate quite well in the fast processes, meaning credit cards, student loans, auto loans, personal loans, HELOCs, home equity loans. Those all of them kind of whenever you're applying for those loans, you expect a response pretty much instantly.
Right.
This same thing applies for like small business lending, where you have usually like someone guaranteeing that loan, an individual. So they are shopping for a loan, they want something relatively soon, and go back to building their business. And all of those kind of fall within that fast category, right? And there's a lot of data brokers and businesses kind of facilitating that all of that kind of takes place at that speed. So we play in that on that field. And there's the slow category, what I describe mortgages and large commercial lending, right? Like so mortgages inherently after the financial crisis, there's a waiting periods. There's titles and all and things that need to happen for that mortgage to close. So I would describe that process as much more as a process management tool relative to what we actually do. That is more of a kind of decisioning solution. Right. We do quite well the fast one. The slow one is one that we could do, which is not a focus for us. Right. So for your listeners out there, if you've applied for a credit card, an auto loan, a personal loan, or student loan in the last couple of months, there's a good chance that you've done it over some of our rails, so to speak.
So then, so if I'm I'm one of the people that you would be selling to as a bank or a healthcare company or that sort of stuff. What sort of I'm always interested in the enterprise sales model, right? Because
Mm,
that's a
yeah,
different sales model than I've ever been in.
yeah.
I've been in B2B or B2C and small volume,
Mhm.
low ticket price. So walk me through that process a little bit of
Mm.
as a salesperson yourself, spreading the gospel. Are you spreading the gospel and booking an appointment for the closer, or are you closing the deal as well?
No, we close the deal too, right? Like as you described correctly, it's enterprise software, right? Like, so it's highly involved for the end customer. It's a big decision, so you need to really curate that for the end customer, right? Like I would say key things that our customers love about Fuse for in our enterprise software. First and foremost is the integration capabilities, right? The way that I describe it to my mother, whenever I need to explain to her what I do is I tell her, hey, like we have enabled this sort of app store uh, for lenders to kind of access a bunch of solutions out there and not have to ultimately ask for the meaning us to like really build that connectivity because it's already kind of out of the box for the vast majority of things that they will need. Uh, and my mom would ask, why is that important? Because most lenders up to this point, they will have like one connection and they will be kind of married to that data partner or like bureau for a while. What we want to is elicit customer choice. When you give customer choice, your customers love you, right? Because they are able to experiment, right? They're like, hey, I never used this particular data source. I can A/B test it and split my flows of like, hey, 50% of the folks that are coming for this channel, I'm going to run this, and 50% I'm going to run that. I'm going to see what works best, right? Like from a risk standpoint, from a cost standpoint, and they love that. The second thing that we help our customers do is we recognize that there's an inherent tension between technical teams and non-technical teams, but we made the conscious choice of freeing the technical teams by virtue of empowering the non-technical folks, like with low code, no code solutions, right? Instead of having to code everything, and we give business teams the ability to actually do things that up to this point they couldn't do, right? Like and do it in a way that is clean, that is intuitive, and free up the engineers to do more strategic work versus tactical stuff that usually becomes a distraction of the day to day. So the two parties are pretty happy. The engineers do much more relevant work and not get distracted from with the small things. And the business teams can be much faster and nimble and really react to the market and not have to necessarily explain to the engineers sometimes like why they're doing what they're doing, right? Because sometimes it's a business decision and you just need to be react to the market. And then the third thing that is not the least important, but it's just the third thing that we usually focus the most is giving the lenders the flexibility to have dashboards, meaning like whatever they look on their day to day, if you're a funder, if you're an underwriter, if you're some teller at a bank, that they're whatever they're seeing on the screen should be reflective of their day-to-day operations and not have like a kitchen sink of issues that like doesn't really help them be more efficient. So for us, it's very key to give them make it easy. So because if you make it very easy, you minimize training. If you minimize training, you can ramp up immediately and in essence be a contributor out of the gates. So those three categories, right? Like the app store, the workflows that are in essence low code, no code, and empower business teams, and the dashboards that are I think are the key attributes that we think our customers appreciate.
So the App Store would plug different elements that they need within their system and make it way faster. It sounds like make it way faster to implement some changes
Yeah,
than what they would have taken in the past, right?
exactly. No, it's huge. It's the integration that we reduce like by 95% integration time. And like with our no code, low code, it's saying the 80% of tasks that needed to be code like now are just either fully automated or something that can be done by a non-technical teams. So it's huge, right? It really democratizes the playing field for the. I am not technical. My co-founder is technical, so now we used an amazing engineering team to democratize the access to engineering tools.
Right. Like when back in the day, I remember when websites first came out, right? And you had to know HTML, and now you don't have
Exactly.
to, right? It's the
Exactly.
same sort of thing.
Exactly. That you hit the nail on the head. Like that's exactly
Yeah,
what
now
I
you
have.
got plug and play stuff, and it's there's never been a better time to be a small business person in the world today to have access to all the tools that we have. Right, you're in your mid 30s, I'm in my mid 50s. I remember back in the day, just printing 100 business cards cost me about $1 a card back in the day. You know, it was ridiculous. And then it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And now we just print them out on our computer, or we can go to Vistaprint or these things. And so I think technology, people are afraid of AI, but I tell you what, my posting and my other stuff, when I run it through Chat GPT and then edit it for my voice, has made things quicker, right? It's made things better. And so I think something like Fuse. So when was Fuse founded?
We started originally as a direct to consumer brand, so that was a little bit over 2 years ago. But Fuse, like the B2B Fuse, started in the last year, so it's been an amazing transition of the business. And I love when you ask me how has it been to go from you were doing different type of sales, we were doing direct to consumer, right? So we had to like completely rewire the organization to be an enterprise organization, right? And that in itself that's an entire chapter of a podcast.
Yeah, so I listened to a podcast called The Brutal Truth, and he is on it, and he talks about enterprise sales, and just the level of the sales tail, the process of how long it takes to sell on the enterprise level. Oh my gosh, you've got to have some persistence there that you don't need in small business sales. You know, you need some. I'm not saying you don't need persistence, but just enterprise sales. More power to you, Andres. It's like no, just no. So you're one of the co-founders. Then this is your company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My co-founder, he oversees everything product and tech, and I look at everything finance and business development and legal for the company.
And so who is your client avatar, or who's your sweet spot? What industries are you focusing on right now? Now, folks, don't hold him to this. This is 2023 in November that we're talking about this. So if you talk to him in 5 years after listening to this podcast, the model could have changed. So give him some grace. Okay, go ahead. I've done the disclaimer.
Yeah. No, we started the genesis story of the business was heavy auto lending, and we found our initial kind of sources of the most successful were like car lenders. But we quickly added like a bunch of other products, right? That's how we developed this strategy around like the fast loan origination systems, right? Because we figured out that car loans were kind of like the hardest of like that category of speed,
right?
And we just started expanding. And what we did is we kind of prove ourselves with our customers first on that car lending side, and we quickly kind of expanded to the with the ones that do other type of products. We've been able to like earn the share of wallet by virtue of like just proving ourselves, but in kind of in very like venture capitalist fashion, we start very focusedly narrow. You make your customers like really love you, and by virtue of like proving that specialized solution, then you earn the right to kind of expand, and that's kind of where we are today.
Right. And so so you could, it sounds like you can help a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm trying to get some people that are listening to this. Oh yeah, that's me. That's me. I need to give him a call. How would they know it's them?
If they're struggling with with very cumbersome processes, then they're struggling with vendors that charge them to make changes to their software. when in essence get in line to do every change. Uh, they're not dealing with a tech partner; they're dealing with a consultant.
Right.
If if as an organization you find yourself most of the time, um, like you're finding some obstacles to kind of make changes to your software for the software that you're paying with your hard-earned dollars, and they tell you, hey, like that's something that you can get in line, and like we're going to do a ticket or we're going to scope it out. That sounds like you're not working with a tech partner. That sounds like you're working with a consultant. So those are early signs of perhaps you should speak with us. If you are working in any category of auto lending, credit card lending, personal loans, anything that is non-mortgage consumer, we can certainly help you be much more efficient and reduce costs and be faster. And same thing on small business lending. If you're doing like kind of trying to be a much more optimized, increase your look to books and reduce your cost from a kind of data perspective, you should definitely speak with us.
You have a
We're
sweet
heavily
spot. Sorry, go on.
we mostly work in the US, and that just the US is pretty good at in terms of like data providers and like being able to really minimize the keystrokes and in essence use our product to its full potential. It can certainly be used in other categories of credit products. Reality is here, Ed, is that our product is highly versatile, right? Like down the road, like it's all these workflows can be mirrored in other categories, not only on credit, but today I think credit is keeping us quite busy, right? Like as I mentioned, it's a $40 billion space. So for the time being, we're pretty happy working with like chief lending officers, the CEOs, the CTOs of the businesses that we partner with.
Okay. And so what would you say revenue wise, if you're on the other side, if you're on my side and I'm
No,
looking at your product, what size revenue would they need to be doing to start having that conversation with you?
yeah. Usually it's like folks that already, if they're like a fintech, they probably have raised some meaningful capital. If they're a lender, like we have all sorts of sizes of folks.
Right.
Like on the small end, or folks that are doing a few million every month in terms of like loans. We
Right.
have folks that are in the hundreds millions, right? So it really comes down to what pain points they have. But if you're at the ideation stage of the business and you haven't raised capital yet, probably it's better to kind of uh, just start with like a small mock-up or whatever we want to do, and then we would love to engage with you.
Right. So, but we're not talking the small car yard on the corner, the small
Yeah.
lot. We're talking dealerships. We're talking.
No, we don't. We seldom work direct. Dealers usually work with the lenders we
Oh,
have,
right.
right? Yeah,
Right.
the dealers usually have their own relationship. We do have some dealer relationships, but it's that seldom chance that like the dealer actually provides the balance sheet. In
Gotcha.
general, the dealerships actually just have the inventory and they have lending
And then
partners.
send you over, right? Send you over to
Exactly.
your banks,
Yeah.
credit unions, or
Exactly.
finance companies.
Exactly. That's how it works, right? Like online lenders, all of those are partners to us, indirect networks, and yeah, if and all of them, if not like, yeah, I would say 100% of them, with some very rare exceptions, or already have a system in place that we will be replacing, right? So the nice thing about our product is not the type of product that you're just it's completely de novo, and when you approach them, like they explain to me what is it that this does, right? And
Right.
you're like, well, where we're just replacing XYZ that you have for a much better piece of technology.
Right. Quicker, like the old $6 million man ad where he says, we have the technology, we can build it quick, we can make it quicker, we can make it faster, we can make it cheaper, sort of thing, and
Yeah.
and really it just comes down to, don't you think it comes down to building better relationships with your customers, right? That's what it really allows you to do.
Okay. Yeah.
It's convenient, and your customer that has a better experience is more likely to come back and stay with you long term.
And they give you referrals, right? One of the, I would say, like, for enterprise, you really become friends with your customers, right? Because you spend so much time with them that you develop a personal relationship. I don't. I mean, it's not that you don't care about your customers at smaller tickets. You just have less exposure to them,
Right.
so the deepening of that relationship and bond is not as possible. It's not, the opportunities are more scarce. So definitionally, you cannot get to that level of depth. So with us, given that the importance of the relationship and the time that you need to dedicate to it, obviously, like, you end up getting to know them beyond just their aspirations of what software means to them, right? Like, you go, you meet them on site, and you understand the magnitude of that they are championing you with, but especially their first set of customers. They're really entrusting you with a decision that they're betting at you. So it's very important to kind of like not drop the ball. You should never drop the ball, but those first relationships really drive the course of the business.
Right, it's the foundation of their business, right? If they get it doesn't do the job, then that's a problem, because they can't do their business. So well, hey, if people want to find out more information about it, what's the best place for them to go?
And LinkedIn is a huge source of interaction for me. So, like, I'd be more than happy to connect with folks there. And not only talk business, happy to talk about career, education, or anything else. I'm obsessed with Formula One. Yeah, exactly. We're all humans.
Right. So we'll have Andres' contact information in the show notes. He's given us that. I see his LinkedIn profile. I actually think I see the company profile too. So you'll be able to check him out on LinkedIn, and then they've got a website and stuff. You'll find it'll all be in the show notes. Okay. So when you're interviewed, do you have anything that you wish people would ask you about and they never do?
Well, I've never been asked that, but kind of like, I think I enjoyed my conversation here with you. You give me a platform to speak about who I am and what Fuse does. Like, you really showed a lot of interest in the process of like developing business and for the organizations. I don't think I've ever been asked that, and I like the incisiveness of those questions, because it makes you think on not only how to be a bit better leader, but also the importance of like developing the relationship with your partners, and just never forgetting how important it is to like just have that customer first mentality.
Right. Because you go through this process. I remember when I started my first business, I was 15 years old, convenience store, doing $500,000 in volume by the end of the 5 years. But we did 100,000 the first year for a kid that's 15 in 1983 without the internet. I was pretty excited about that. But then to see my parents help us grow it to 500,000, it's still a little peanut business, right? We're not talking your sort of level, but it was fun for me. And relationships are key. Now, whether you're doing a $100 million business or $1 billion business, relationships are still key. I love talking to these kids that want to scale and they want to build a Tesla, or they want to build a Dell computer or an Amazon. And I'm like, until you know how to love on your customer, there's nothing to scale, right? You can't scale if you're not treating your customers right. I don't care who you are. So would you agree?
No, 100%. You need to have customer empathy, right? Like, the product that we sell today was originally our own engine. So we have that advantage of having used it first and first solve the problem for ourselves. And it was nice that like the problem that we had was shared by hundreds, if not thousands, of lenders out there.
So you solved the problem for yourself, and created this software for yourself, and now you're using it for others.
Exactly. Of course, it's been it has gotten to the enterprise grade and then much
Right.
more robust, but like the genesis of it was that, right? Like,
Okay. Well, I've got another question for you as we start to wrap up. What is something we've all gone through challenges, right? We've all gone through struggles. Think about a time in your life where you've gone through a major struggle, right? You've had a big challenge. What is something during those times that you're most proud of?
uh, I mean, there are multiple examples, right? Like
Well,
this
pick one.
family, the professional life. I would say like realizing that the first iteration of the business was we were actually going to switch. That in itself, although we had this lucky thing that like if anything, our customers were kind of pushing us in that direction. It took a couple of days, if not weeks, to really having that come to Jesus moments in which you realize the original idea has been bested by this idea that we didn't know at first. So we were lucky, but you need to kind of see if the system, if the organization that you've built before is going to be the same, right? So is the configuration of the team the best? Is the configuration of the founding team the best, right? Like how are we going to split roles, right? First we had this type of ICP, and now we have this completely different ICP. Our go-to-market is very different, right? From being in jeans and t-shirts, we're gonna have to wear slacks and jackets. So you kind of like fall in love again with your co-founder too, right? So that process is renewing your vows, but it was a protracted process for a couple of weeks, and that I feel very proud of how we handle it. How we handle it with investors, how we handle it with our families, how do we handle it like with our employees, every single stakeholder that you can imagine. Like we made it clear that where we were headed, it was the right path for us, and for whoever like didn't want to continue or couldn't continue on that path, we would just try to be as empathetic and as compassionate as possible. And that process was the order, like just how the equanimity, all of that. It was exhausting, but I feel very proud of how we landed on what Fuse is today.
And I would think that what played a role in that is the culture of you and your co-founder, and you share that out around your team, right? Culture matters. Remember back in the 90s, it used to be the mission statement and the vision statement. And I think mission and vision are important, but I think if you don't have the right culture at your company, and if you don't treat people well, and I think not enough companies articulate their culture statement very well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know how to treat people right, but they don't know how to articulate that in a company culture statement. Is that something that you felt around that of changing your whole model of the way you and your co-founder treat each other and you treat your team? That comes down to culture, right?
Yeah, and no matter if you have a more relaxed or very like high performance culture, like it really comes down. It's the culture kind of trickles down at first, and then like becomes much more like horizontal, right? But at first, uh, since him and I were deciding the fate of the business and the direction in which it was going, obviously, like the level of respect we have for each other, had it been tension, had there been like difficulties and disagreements, I'm sure that would have come out differently, and like and we would have actually created uh, a gap between the distinct teams without the business. So I 100% agree. Culture is important, right? Like you need to set up goals, uh, mission, vision important, but like it's a we're like even more granular, right? Like just performance goals for each one, like having sit downs, explaining to employees what the direction of the organization what the direction of the organization is, all of that, and like having KPIs, OKRs, measuring as much as possible, because that really helps a ton for people to realize, hey, like I am going in this direction, I'm performing, or the business as a whole is like really setting a benchmark to which they aspire to like to get. Otherwise, it becomes very fluffy, and when it's fluffy, you definitionally are gonna people are gonna sense some level of uncertainty.
Well, I also find out when I go into organizations and I talk to them about this stuff, right? A lot of your key leaders couldn't couldn't articulate culture, couldn't articulate mission, couldn't articulate vision, because it is too fluffy. It's not concise enough or brought up enough that they understood it and could quote it. I'm not saying they quote it verbatim, but can quote what the goals actually are, right, from those areas. To me, it's very interesting. So how did you and your co-founder come together? How did you guys meet?
We met at Harvard. We were like getting our MBAs there 8 years ago. He comes from a much more like tech industry background, and I have a much more like finance background, and we stayed in touch. I always had the utmost respect for his like abilities. He's like seemingly the most organized person I know in this world. Like, and I thought I was an organized person until I met him and I worked with him, and I have a blast. Every day I come and I truly, I think we get the best out of each other and complement each other quite well. It's also fortunate that we have a very honest relationship. That I think the most important thing we created together is this business, and we treat it as our baby, right? And I don't think anything else gets in the way other than like making Fuse live up to all the dreams and hopes that we have for it.
Right. So okay, so let's go in that direction. It's interesting that you say nothing else gets in the way. How do you find with a new company? I know it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, effort, and energy. You got a newborn baby as well as a newborn business, right?
Yeah.
So 6 months old. How old?
The baby or the corporation?
Yeah,
the baby's 7 weeks.
Oh, 7 weeks. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you. So how are you finding work-life balance? I mean, is there balance or is it out of balance? There's always balance. It's either.
I mean, from my perspective, there is balance, right? But I'm sure that like it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I do think that we have all these other people that are helping us get to our maximum goal, right? Our families, our loved ones, everyone is kind of contributing. We're the sum of efforts, right? I always have trouble saying like I did this, because obviously my parents and my parents' parents and like all the way up to like the evolutionary chain, there was someone that made it possible for you and I to have this conversation today.
Right.
And although I made some discretionary decisions in the process, I'm heavily affected by the social fabric that we all operate in. So definitely, I'm very grateful for the people that are enabling us to pursue our dream, having the patience, and having I feel very lucky that my parents, our families, that like people place bet on us, our venture capitalists and our employees allow us to like really build this organization. It's not easy to have a kid, but come on, it's also the biggest source of focus you can get. At least I think it really puts things even more in perspective. I don't think you need to have kids to gain that perspective, but since they're already here, you take full advantage of that extra boost.
Right. So, okay, and as we close this, is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't covered?
No, I don't know if you have any other questions, but like I had a blast.
Well, good. No, all I've got is dad jokes. That's all that's left.
Yeah.
So,
well, I need plenty of those.
Okay. Well, my favorite one, so my kids all grew up playing Pokemon, right? And so we've got a couple of Pokemon ones that are fun. How do you get Pikachu on a bus?
I don't know.
You Pokemon. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then you know why you don't take a bath with a Pokemon?
Why?
Because you're Pikachu. Now, for those of you that don't know anything about Pokemon, the little mouse Pokemon, his name is Pikachu. So they came out of Japan in the mid 90s, I think. Yeah, mid 90s, somewhere in there, and have gone on to make millions and billions of dollars in movies, card games, merchandise. You see it all over the place. So most of the kids like those ones. But for me, my favorite ones, there's three that are my favorite. I was watching a Netflix documentary, free plug for Netflix, and it was about how they build warships. Riveting.
I love that. The History Channel had a show called Modern Marvels.
Right.
And
Yeah. I watched that all the time. So did you catch that joke though? Riveting. Did you catch that on? Yeah. So that's the weak part of the joke. The strong part of the joke is the Norwegian Navy. Say that 3 times real fast. The Norwegian Navy is welding barcodes to the sides of their warships, so when they come back to port, they can Scandinavian.
My wife is Norwegian. She's gonna like that.
Oh, is that right? She's Norwegian.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite. Favorite one. And then the other one is, what did the pirate say? What did the 80-year-old pirate say at his birthday party?
I don't know.
I'm 80. Right? That's good, isn't it? That's good. And then the third one is, although this one you got to have the right audience. What's the difference between ignorance and apathy? I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. Those are my 3 jokes during COVID. We went. So the Navy one was 2021. The pirate was 2020, and 2023 was ignorance and apathy, because that just sort of fit. Or 2022. So 2020, 2021, 2022. I haven't come up with my joke for 2023 yet. I'm leaning towards, I love the way the earth rotates. It really makes my day.
I have one for you. Like, I think in this spin of like more like nice jokes. It's this Buddhist monk approaches this Buddhist monk, and he asks, Master, what is indifference? Thank you, Master. You can delete that dad joke.
No, it's good. It's good. Like, so I have a couple of dad joke books up on Amazon. The only original dad joke I've got is, what do you call a happy cannibalistic warrior that eats his girlfriend?
I don't know.
It's kind of dark and twisted, right? A gladiator. So that's why I'm not allowed to make dad jokes, because they're too dark. So, but I've got this guy coming out. For those of you that have seen my show before, that watch the video, I'm building we call him special ed. He's qualified. He's got all the qualifications. So you'll have to check out the video on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook is where they'll be. But hey, Andreas, it's been a pleasure having you on. We'll connect on LinkedIn, and then as you've got some stuff, you get down the road a little bit, 6 months or a year or 2 years, 3 years, whatever, come back and I'll give you some more dad jokes. As boy or girl, what have you had? 7 weeks?
It's a boy.
Okay. Oh yeah, good. So yeah, he'll appreciate that. So as you need more material, let me know, and I can send you one of my figurines. It'll have 101 dad jokes that'll tell in 9 minutes.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. I hope I qualify for that coming back.
Well, you've been to Sydney, so you've got the right qualifications. This is the special ed army coming from a slow boat in China. So they're all there. Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye, Ed.
G'day again. Well, that's it for the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like us, subscribe, follow, write a 5-star review, all the good stuff. Thanks a lot for listening, and look forward to having you listen to the next one.